ovens to 350. This recipe, citrus meringue pie, I think it can be a little daunting sounding. And on the one hand, if you look at it, it looks a little daunting. But it's 3 components, you guys. It's just 3 components. It's not a huge deal. We've got a crust, we've got a filling, and we've got a topping. You know what I mean? Even looking at meringue pie sometimes, I'm like, oh, like that's some work that we're gonna have to put in. But it's not at all as tricky as it seems like it might be. And I hope, I feel like I should have made this more clear. I hope everyone got their crust dough out early. And if you like a crumb dough with meringue pie, if you like brought some graham cracker crust, or you brought, gosh, you know, chocolate and lemon, those go great together. If you brought some like Oreo crust pre-made, perfect, absolutely great. This is the pie crust that we use in quiche, pot pie. I use it for all sweet pies too. This is my preference of pie. It's just a butter crust. And obviously it's only a bottom crust for this. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better. It's not too bad. Oh, thank you for mentioning that. Sorry to anyone who is going to Facebook. I've had a couple technology hurdles today that I didn't expect, though I did anticipate going on Facebook. If you are, well, I guess no one can see this on Facebook. I hope you found the link I posted to anyone that might be stuck on Facebook right now. I wasn't able to manage getting it up, so it'll just be Instagram today. But this video will be on Facebook. It'll like it always does, after we record, the video will go up on Facebook and everyone will be able to access it there, on the website, on YouTube, and on IGTV as well. I try and make it really accessible. The actual recipe will only be on the site though, which is beurrepastryshop.com/blog, and it'll be under citrus meringue pie, and it'll be the first one there up until next week when we do something that I have sort of a plan about. Anyways, if you are just joining, preheat oven to 350. That is for par baking our crust, which I'm going to start rolling out now. Now this is smaller maybe than you've seen before. It's just the half recipe of the crust recipe that you'll find, I think originally in week 8 for quiche. Because this is my quiche crust. This is my all-purpose butter crust, no sugar needed in it. Whether you're doing sweet or savory, you could make massive batches of this crust, and I don't remember how much I talked about it week 8, and we're on week 17. I don't know how much I talked about it, but you can make big batches. You can't really fit in your food processor. You can't really fit more than the batch that I put on week 8, but you can keep using that food processor without cleaning it, keep making crust, and just keep them in the fridge. And then when the day before you want to use it, keep it in the freezer, beg your pardon. Day before you want to use it, pop it into the refrigerator so it comes up to temperature a little bit. And then maybe pull it out an hour before you want to use it, and you just got ready-made crust in the freezer. That's the dream. That's like the best food planning. I don't do that. My poor husband always gets the, hey, so I had a quiche order today, and this crust has been rolled out 27 times, and now we can eat it on pot pie. It's as tough as leather. It's never that bad. I have too high of standards of how many times you can re-roll out pie dough. Again, sorry about Facebook. Thank you for people that know what's going on. No Facebook today. Wasn't the plan, or else I would have been a lot more clear about it. I don't know if anyone's keeping track, but if you've noticed, I pulled out my marble slab today because of what happened last time. I was rolling crust on that green mat, and it's going wonderfully, and the crust feels perfect. If you want to know, I made this crust on Saturday. Saturday was yesterday? Oh, this is really fresh. I was going to tell you how well it keeps. I'm like, wait, that's not that long. I probably just sat in the fridge. I don't think I froze this at all. And that's another thing. You can make it a few days early and leave it in the fridge. All right, we're going for 2-3 millimeters here. And I always, even though this isn't a bottomless pan, I always like putting a little flour in the bottom. Maybe that's some superstitious thing. No harm. There's no harm in doing that. And hello, slippery crust. Hello, forgiving crust. There we go. Okay. So this is the half recipe of that crust on week 8 quiche. And you can see it's the perfect size for, I think this is a 9-inch pie plate. That's a typical pie plate. And this is par bake. This is a par bake situation, but it's a little more than just a par bake situation. And because it's going to bake for a little longer, and we're talking, I'm gonna do 10 minutes at 350, preheat your ovens if you haven't, 10 minutes at 350, and then I'm gonna pull out I am gonna trim it in advance because of the amount of time that we're baking. And keep some of this. If anything goes wrong, you end up with any holes, we're gonna line it with the raw crust. Oven's ready. After 10 minutes with the weights in, I'm just using rice today, we're going to bake it for 5 more minutes. And that's because the way this pie is going to cook in the oven, it's going to be sort of low and slow, and it's not actually that long. So we just want to make sure that you don't end up with this like beautiful curd that you spent time on. You spent time on the meringue, and then all of a sudden your crust is raw and soggy. We don't want that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Obviously, your meringue is going to go right up to the edge of this. So you can absolutely decorate if you've got a pan that is flat on top. Mine's not flat on top. So we're ready. Parchment, foil, beans, rice. You need one or the other, both of those. Another pie plate sitting right on top. You can find something. It just needs to be oven safe and heavy. And I just keep reusing this. So if you're using rice today or beans, put it in a bag, let it cool, put it in a bag, and then reuse it. And then you have pie weights. You don't need to buy them. All right, 10 minutes. That's what we're going to go with here. Now, while we prep other stuff, I've got a little bit extra juice, and I'm doing grapefruit today. I have to tell you, this is an adventure because, thank you for loving my marble slab. So do I. I have a little bit extra juice. I'm going to get it cooking in advance and let it reduce just a little bit. Whenever I work with grapefruit juice, I always reduce it a little bit to get a stronger flavor. If you're using lemon, you can totally skip this step. Though I would argue absolutely that all citrus juices are interchangeable, you have to remember that there are still differences. There are differences in citric acid quantity and sugar quantity. Grapefruit has a bitter quality a stronger bitter quality that other citrus fruits aren't as strong in. So just know that in advance. Let me get my scraper here, which has been set out to dry. Give it a quick dry and clean up my marble slab. So if you're using orange, for instance, that has a higher sugar quantity. Obviously, you peel and eat oranges. You don't peel and eat lemons. So you can use a little bit less sugar, for instance. That sort of thing. And maybe this is a trial and error, and I forgot to set a timer, 10 minutes. Maybe this is a little trial and error, and you'll realize, oh, this is too sweet. Oh, no, this is too bitter. Oh, I need to adjust this part. And that's the beauty of baking, though, isn't it? So I've got my grapefruit juice over medium heat, and while that's happening, I'm going to talk to you about what's going on here. The ingredients list for the day. Now, it seems like a lot even now as I'm talking about it. It's not. Don't freak out. Everything's fine. Basically, this is how easy it is. Everything above this line, that's all going into our pan. And if you're reducing your grapefruit, I'm going to put it into that exact pan. That's my plan, is to reduce it just a little bit. I'm talking like 5 minutes or less here. And then I'm going to put my grapefruit juice back into my measuring cup and add it until these two together add to 3 cups. Now, if you're just using, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. No, not at all. Until these two together add up to 2 cups, the water and the fruit juice. So if you're using lemon juice, 3 lemons should be enough, but obviously use a measuring cup. Make sure it's just half cup that you're using there. And I would recommend actually combining your liquids. So put your lemon juice, get a half cup in a measuring cup, and then put on top of it 1.5 cups water. And that's just gonna make it easier when we combine everything together. If you're not reducing your juice, so I'm gonna put my water directly into there, you can combine the dry ingredients into a separate bowl, or you could put those first into your pot and then slowly whisk in the juice. Some recipes, I'm worried it's not as forgiving. So I like to make sure that you do things a little bit slowly and get everything in together, well incorporated. So I'm going to take my dry ingredients and and that's the granulated sugar, the cornstarch, the zest, and the salt. And I'm going to whisk them together in a separate bowl, and then I'm going to put them into my grapefruit juice and my water. And so you can be doing this directly into your pot, or you can do it in a separate bowl like I'm doing. It's completely up to you. The cornstarch is our thickening agent today. And if you are feeling lazy and you've got a big cornstarch, that is a 1/4 cup plus 1 tablespoon. Mine's not that big, so I'm going for the full 5 tablespoons. 2, 4, and 5. And if you only have salted butter, use less salt here, or omit it entirely. Checking my grapefruit juice. Smells wonderful, holy smokes. Oh my goodness. So I've got 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and my cornstarch in, and now I'm going to add in my salt. And I'm actually using a mix of unsalted and salted butter because that's what I have. So I'm only going to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And moving on to sort of what's left here, if you haven't separated your eggs yet, go for it, and you need those whites. That's what's going to make up our meringue. Which I love recipes like that. That's the only way to be when you've got a recipe that uses both equally. You've got 4 whites, and that's our souffle recipe from week 13, which, by the way, was a French meringue, and we're making a French meringue today as well. Sometimes people make slurries with cornstarch and eggs, and that works too. But not... it would work if you added them to the egg yolks. But we're looking for our initial mixture to thicken before we get to our egg yolks, so we're not doing that today. All right, I'm adding my grapefruit juice back to my measuring cup. All right, and then I'm going to add in my water. And again, this should total to 2 cups. Okay. And so we're going to put this over low heat. Our water, our juice, if you're using lemon juice, awesome. And our granulated sugar, cornstarch, zest, and salt. And you're going to get out a whisk. And this is actually going to thicken, and it's going to be cloudy. That's the cornstarch. Now, when you're separating your eggs, you want to make sure it's a bowl big enough, because if you remember our custard pies, our cream pies, gosh, I don't even know what week that was, we're going to temper the egg yolks. One thing that's super nice about this recipe is, and this pie in general, is nothing has to cool. You actually don't want it to cool. So once the pie crust comes out, a lot of pies you would need to allow it to cool. Not this one. It's okay if it's warm. And when we get our filling in there, it needs to be warm. It's better to be warm to seal that meringue on top. That's sometimes the trouble with meringue. It can be temperamental. It hates certain weather. But I always think it's worth a shot. And the worst thing that can happen is your meringue gets weepy. And if it starts weeping, meaning it starts releasing moisture, it's unattractive, but very edible. Very edible, just so you know. All right, perfect. The goal when we temper the egg yolks is to not cook them. So you don't get scrambled eggs in your curd. However, to be safe, I brought a big mesh strainer with me today so that I could strain this mixture into the pie crust. And that'll be following the tempering. It'll be following adding our butter. Okay. My pie crust has been in for 6 minutes. It has 4 to go, and then I'm going to remove the weights, and I'm going to remove the parchment. And I'm very excited to have grapefruit meringue pie tonight. Did I mention this is my first time making grapefruit meringue pie? I think it's going to work. I haven't figured out why it wouldn't work. We'll see. Right, it actually is beginning to thicken a little bit. And this is very much, this is going to be, that's your measurement. Everyone's stovetop is going to cook differently, so we're looking for it to be thickened. The zest in here is so pretty. I mean, it's a very pale color. The grapefruit juice, I mean, it's very pale, and then I've got these flecks of like pinkish orange zest. Very fun. You'll notice if you're making lemon, you'll notice that you'll also have a pretty pale, cloudy mixture. Once the egg yolks go in, it turns yellow. Isn't that interesting? I never really think about that. Like, what's causing this to turn yellow? At that cupcake shop that I worked at, they had these mint chocolate chip cupcakes. Very fun, like the type where I'm pretty sure it was a chocolate base, and then you use an ice cream scoop to put the mint buttercream on top. It was a mousse, I think, like a mint chocolate chip mousse. And the way we made that was it a mousse? Now I'm thinking through it, it must have been. We actually put blue food dye in it, and then once the egg yolks went in, it turned the perfect shade of green. I think stuff like that makes food pretty cool. I do have, and I rarely have it live on the site, but I do have grapefruit bars, which is basically my lemon bar recipe made with grapefruit juice instead. I love them. I do. I think grapefruit's a really fun, underrepresented fruit. And I also must admit, to me, citrus meringue pie is a summer flavor, but citrus isn't a summer fruit. It thrives in the winter. You're going to find a lot of like blood oranges, which is something I want to do a blood orange pie sometime. You're going to find that stuff is really in season in the winter time. All right. Perfect timing as we multitask together, because my oven's about to go and this is thickening. Everything's going to be fine. This is thickening really nicely. I'm getting ready to get into my oven. If you don't want to do these steps at the same time, it's too late to tell you now, but you're perfectly welcome to get your crust baked and then start on your curd. I don't know if you can hear it like bubbling and brewing. Ooh. I wonder if blood oranges are in season as early as October, because that sounds like a fun Halloween pie. All right, I'm pulling that off the heat so it doesn't overdo it. And getting my crust out. Now again, we're going to keep baking this. I'm going to go for, and mind your hot burners, I'm going to go for 5 more minutes. Perfect. To really get, and I can see that the bottom is still quite shiny, so it needs more time. It definitely needs more time. 5 more minutes on the crust. Some people do par bake at a much higher temperature. I don't like to do that. Sort of, the need to not overbake it for me is too strong, so I do 350. If you want to bump it up to 400, your crust will probably be okay. You just have to keep a more watchful eye on it. All right, sorry if I'm missing any. Oh, I do have a comment. Someone who made cream pies had some cooked egg yolks in there. If you don't have a large strainer, that's totally fine. It's not an issue. If you do, though, if you have a fine mesh strainer, just a regular strainer for pasta won't work. But if you have a fine mesh strainer, why not is my thought. Why not? Use it just to make sure. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm going to have a few cooked egg yolks in here. I'm sure it's almost certain. But we're going to do our best to temper these. Okay. Mine is getting super thick. And I'll show you as soon as I am pleased, which is not yet. So far, not so bad, right? We've got two components going at once, and it's just the meringue. And again, this is a French meringue. French meringue, to me, simplest to make, probably easiest to overbeat, but we're going to be paying attention to it. We're going to be paying loads of attention to that meringue while it goes. French meringue is just where you're beating egg whites, and you slowly add in sugar. How simple is that? It's super simple. Okay, ooh, this is getting nice and thick. I'm gonna give it just a little bit longer. The aroma of grapefruit is phenomenal. I have, just so you know, I have made this recipe for lemon meringue pie. Like it works great as a lemon meringue pie. For some reason, I like to be adventurous when going live with people. Okay. I just learned a new way to separate eggs. You suck the egg yolk with an empty water bottle? No. Get out of here. What? Do you squeeze it first and then let go? I have seen separators, actually only at school, only at Le Cordon Bleu have I seen this, but like, you just crack a tiny hole in the shell and then suck the egg yolk out, but it's like an egg separator. Hopefully you've had plenty of time to separate if you hadn't separated yet. All right, this is looking wonderful. And I know I didn't mention it, but this does require some patience. Obviously, it will go back into the oven to dry out the top of the meringue and set it. And then it has to sit on the counter and just chill out. You know, after a long day of work, sometimes you just need to sit on the couch and zone out. This guy needs to zone out on your countertop. Don't bug me. I've been working in the oven for so long. I have to admit, this is not incredibly attractive. I'll get up in your face right now. You know, it's sort of gelatinous, and I don't like a shine like that. It reminds me of Jell-O almost. But it is nice and thick, which is good. That's what we're looking for. I'm gonna give it maybe 1 more minute, 2 tops, and 2 because crust has 2 more minutes before I pull it out. Okay. It does smell so wonderfully like grapefruit though. Woo! We are absolutely just about there. Now to temper these egg yolks, I don't have any measurements for you except to say you're gonna do it slowly and you're gonna whisk the entire time. Probably you're gonna end up putting maybe 1/3 of this mixture into your egg yolks to temper them. But again, you're just gonna do a little bit at a time. There's no reason to rush this process. And I will pull my crust out before I begin tempering. I feel like this is the first time on a bake-along where we've actually had like, everything stop, I need to do this thing. Normally I just leave stuff on the heat here and there. I promised myself I wouldn't talk about this pot, but here I'm about to talk about it again. With this copper lining though, very much in danger of burning something. All right, 20 seconds. Here did you see my, bless your heart, my apron today? I don't know what it is from. I'm pretty sure my mom got it for me though. So many of my aprons are from my family and parents when they travel. Also, if you're watching and you gave me this apron, I'm so sorry that I forgot. Okay, here we go. Ooh, see, it's popping. Okay, nice. All right, so the bottom is not shiny, it's cooked. That's what we're looking for, and now it'll sit. Reduce your oven temperature to 300. All right. So we're gonna start tempering. Leave your stovetop on, this is going right back in. Now my pot has a lip, which will make this easier. And I'm just gonna do a little bit at a time. Make sure you can see, very little bit. Get your yolks broken, get whisking a little bit. And this is to bring the eggs closer to the temperature of our mixture. Otherwise, you will scramble your eggs. And it is a very different texture in your pies if you have scrambled eggs in there. You just get a little chew every now and then. Okay, and you're gonna have to whisk continuously once this goes back in. I'm gonna do one more dump. There we go. Dump the elegant turn for tempering eggs. And then back in and whisk. And watch this turn yellow. Crazy, isn't it? All right, I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. And then we're gonna cook it a little bit longer. It should thicken more. And this will go right into our crust. And then we're gonna get on our meringue. Guys, right, this is simpler than it seems. Get every little bit out. There we go. And we have this gorgeous yellow curd that's actually not yellow because of the grapefruit or the lemon. Is yellow from the egg yolks. And the egg yolks thicken as well. It's a thickening agent. Most of this is dairy, egg yolks, all of that, but most of this is courtesy of our cornstarch. I did read, and this has nothing to do with this mixture, about our meringue. I think it's a stabilizer. So if you don't have cream of tartar, I didn't want you to not bake along. You can make meringue without cream of tartar. It's not necessary. It's really nice when you're making pie like this to have a stabilizer. Plus cream of tartar is acidic, and so that helps with the flavor a little bit too. Though I'm a person who cannot make a meringue without vanilla extract, which I do have on the recipe, and I didn't put optional. You guys, that's how serious I am about this. But really, if you just have sugar and egg whites, you can make this pie. You don't need the extra ingredients. I have salt, cream of tartar, and vanilla extract. This is perfectly thick. Oh my goodness. Maybe just one more minute. Loving this though. Oh my goodness. The next step will be adding in our butter. And we're going to add it directly into this pot off heat. And then the entire mixture will get put into our pie shell, and then we'll make our meringue. And that meringue will probably, the pie will probably be in the oven. Guys, I don't know, 15 minutes? It really depends on how our egg whites are feeling. If you did get any egg yolk in your whites, you're gonna have to start over. It won't whip if you have any fat at all in your whites. If you're separating by hand, this has never happened to me, but I just have this theory in my head that if you recently touched something greasy, butter, something fatty, and you separated egg yolks by hand, separated egg whites out from the yolks by hand, I just have this theory that it won't whip. That if you've been handling the egg whites at all with any trace of fat on your hands, you're gonna have a problem. So, I know. Persnickety things, aren't they, egg whites? Okay. All right, this is right where I want it to be, and it'll keep thickening as it cools. Whoa! Everything's fine over here, you guys, don't worry. Let me just pick up this extra whisk I have lying right here as if I planned that the entire time. Okay. And the butter is going in. I will fetch the whisk from the floor. Excuse me for 1 second. Oh, you're fine, little guy. Okay. Okay, butter is going in. And this is not some serious thing where it has to go in bit by bit. What you need to make sure is that it melts. That's all. You're just looking for your butter to melt. Now I have a mix of salted and unsalted because that's what I have today. But it just calls for 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter, which is 1.5 ounces if you've got like a weird array of butter lying about, which I did, so I ended up weighing mine out. All right, get that. I'm gonna wash my hands. Okay. Perfect. Now my butter is almost melted, and you're going to need a spatula to get this into your crust. And here's the thing, don't let it cool. Get it in there. Use a mesh strainer if you have one, which I do. Put my mesh strainer on my crust, and then grab my spatula. We want this as hot as possible. And it shouldn't be as thick as a standard curd. It'll thicken more, and then it'll rest. But don't freak out if yours is sort of spilling out like mine is. That is absolutely okay. And don't freak out if yours is a little bit thicker. get this through. We do need this mixture to be hot for our meringue to properly set. So if it's warm, all the better. Absolutely fine. And again, if you did turn off your ovens, we're at 300. We're just prepping for the meringue. You know what is a little sad about what's happening right now? I forgot about this. This fine mesh strainer is catching most of my zest. This might be a little too fine. It is catching, though. I have a few little egg lumps, which is the point of this fine mesh strainer, is to get rid of those egg lumps. Okay. We're done with our curd and we're done with our crust, and we just have the meringue to go. Look at us moving. Okay, recommend you have a stand mixer. If you just have your hand mixer, that works. If you only have your hands, it's going to be a little tricky, but it'll work. It's going to take a while, and you want your curd as warm as possible, so just know that going in. Now, our meringue. 4 egg whites. This is just from when we separated our eggs. And wait for the vanilla extract. I like to put that in at the end just in case. It causes me a little bit of concern when we're dealing with meringue. And then your granulated sugar you're not going to put in yet, but you will put in your cornstarch, your cream of tartar, 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar, and you're going to put that in with your unwhipped egg whites. That is the plan and that is the goal. And then I am going to put a little bit of salt in at the beginning as well. So 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar. That's our stabilizer. That's going to help later on. And then a pinch of salt, 1/8 teaspoon if you're measuring. I'm going to do an actual pinch. I just made it sound like a pinch was a better measurement than an 1/8 teaspoon. Okay, and then have your sugar ready on the side. And your vanilla extract. There we go. Hello, vanilla. And that'll come in way at the end. So, whip. Plug it in and then whip. We're going to start adding in our sugar just before it hits soft peaks. So we're going to be paying attention to this. But we're no longer multitasking. Everything is already over here. It's just the meringue we're focused on now. And you can, I just have my sugar measured out, 1/2 cup of sugar. Over here, 1/2 cup of sugar. And you can literally do it by the teaspoon. Scoop it out, put it in. I'm just going to tilt it in bit by bit. All right, I hit a foamy stage. A little bit longer, and then we're going to start adding our egg whites. The curd looks so good. I feel like I have a second to show you. Doesn't that look delicious? And so yellow. So yellow. And the crust is very blonde. That's perfect. That's the way it should be. All right, I've hit soft peak. I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I'm going to turn this not quite on, see how that's not quite straight? That's soft. So turn it on a little bit lower. Make sure the sugar gets incorporated. And we're going to go a little bit of sugar at a time. Just a few teaspoons. I'm going to go one more up. Now what's going to happen is it's going to get really thick and glossy. You don't want to beat this past the point of being glossy. You really want it to have a shine to it. If it is dull at all, you might have overbeaten it. If you did last week's Swiss meringue buttercream, which was part of the chocolate peanut butter cupcakes runner-up, we made Swiss meringue last week. It's a very shoddy double boiler on my part. Showed me that I need a new pot maybe that fits my mixer bowl for the sole purpose of having my mixer bowl fit over double boiler. You know, all the tech troubles this morning, and I've got whisks flying. It's quite a Sunday. Last week, instead of being live, I pre-recorded because I was catering a wedding, and then I took advantage of it and stayed out of town and unwound a little bit, which was really, really nice. Maybe I'm still in the unwinding mode. It was good. I just got back recently. Alright. I have one more little bit of sugar after this. Probably just half a teaspoon left. And then I'm going to get my vanilla ready. I'm putting in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. There we go. And now I'm going to turn the mixer up. And you want glossy, stiff peaks. That's a perfect French meringue. It already looks just, scrumptious. I dare say it's almost done. That's how fast it's going today. Alright, I'm just going to check on it, see where we're at, if we're at, oh my gosh, I think it's, no, we're still a little bit soft. Let me show you why again. See how it's drooping? Still soft. Very, very close though. Get a whisk ready, get an offset ready, and then if you want to be decorative, a large spoon. I actually have a large spoon. I'm not doing any piping. Feel free to put this into a piping bag and pipe it on top of your pie. I'm just going to layer it on top and then sort of make decorative peaks and valleys with the spoon. Or whatever, you can just slop it on, make sure it's covering every inch, and throw it in the oven. Totally up to you. Alright, let's see where we are. Ooh, it looks really good. Hello. What? Hello, stiff peaks. It's not just supposed to sit like that. It's perfect. Meaning liquid's not supposed to just sit like that. Okay. Get all of that luscious meringue off of your whisk attachment because all of it should go right onto your pie. I'm going to release my bowl and move the pie a little bit closer for you to see. Let's get you out of the way. Okay, so now we are, let me see how hot this is. Perfect. We are going to top our warm curd, if it's warm, that's perfect, with this meringue. And classically, it has, lemon meringue pie typically has more meringue in the center and a little bit less at the edges, so you get that nice dome. I'm just going to actually put it all on and then use my offset to spread it and my spoon to decorate. This is perfect. If yours is, and I don't know how else to describe it except bubbly, you might have over whipped it. If you're having trouble spreading it, it might be a little bit over whipped. I think that it can be saved, and that's the technique I was getting at earlier where you make but I don't think I finished. You make sort of this slush with cornstarch and hot water and then add it to your over whipped egg whites. Now, I've never used that technique before, but I was just reading about it because I always try and come here making sure that if something goes wrong for you, you have a way out of it. And I'm putting this, you want this right up to the edge of the crust. Okay. And that is because you need it to seal. The meringue could be weepy if it's not right up against the crust, and I haven't experienced this myself, but I believe it can shrink. And so if it's not sealed to that crust, your meringue's actually gonna bloop right into the center. Okay. I think step one is making sure it's all across the curd and it's on the edge of the crust. Step 2 will be your decorative peaks, which I'm not that adept at, but this is how I just, you know what I mean, smush the back of my spoon along it. And you can go, if you go deeper some places, it'll create more peaks and valleys. And trust me, whenever this gets into the oven and goes golden brown, no matter what yours looks like going into the oven, it's going to look gorgeous on the other side. Some people prefer to just torch the top. You're not really drying it out very well if you just torch the top. So it depends on also what type of meringue you're using. You can't really use a Swiss meringue on a meringue pie because it's not as stable. I'm pretty sure you can use an Italian, which we did on our week 3 s'mores cupcakes. Oh, this is so pretty, isn't it? I think it's ready. You can also use like a marshmallow meringue topping works, and that one doesn't have to be baked. So if you're not a fan of what we're doing right now, feel free to look up a recipe like that. I'm pretty sure it's typically an Italian meringue, but it uses corn syrup as well. All right, we're going in. And I did a dome in the middle, like a classic lemon meringue pie. 300 degrees, and this is going to take 15 to 20 minutes. I recommend you check it. I'm going to check mine in 10 minutes. And then let me talk about what happens afterwards. You want it to be golden brown on top. That's how you know it's done. It can overbake, and it's going to overbake. That's a problem for the meringue if it overbakes, but you'll also notice the tips of the wisps going too dark. And so you'll know you're on your way, pull it out right then. This has to sit on the counter for, well, at least an hour. You don't want it to be warm to your touch anymore. Recommended that there's some airflow top and bottom, so if you have like any type of wire rack or something, put it on that. And then I like lemon meringue pie cold, or at least sort of chilled a little bit. Now you can let this sit on the counter for a few hours, for maybe 3 hours, let it sit on the counter, then cut into it, and it should be fine. The thing about putting meringue in a refrigerator is that can cause all sorts of problems. So if you're just doing what I'm planning, which is on the counter for an hour, 2 hours till it's cooled, I'm not going to wrap it at all. I'm going to put it right into the fridge. And now there are some things that can happen. You can get condensation on whatever you're wrapping it in, and it'll fall onto the pie and create these little liquid beads or crystals. It's not typical, but it's edible. It looks sort of cool. You just have to tell yourself it does. And when it comes to long-term, storage, you have to wrap it. If you don't have, like I have like pastry boxes, I'm thinking I can just slide the whole thing inside a box and box it on top. It'll still develop some beads though. You can maybe do toothpicks in your meringue, so they're sticking up maybe halfway out, and then put plastic wrap. Pressure on the meringue can cause it to be weepy as well. And again, that's just loss of some moisture. It's not the end of the world. But this pie, best the day you bake it. And I hope even for those that might be in a different time zone, I hope it's early enough where you can still enjoy it tonight. So your choice if you want to leave this sitting at room temperature for a few hours, or if you want to leave it out just until it's cool and then pop it in the fridge, which is my plan. And for sure, once I cut into it, you guys are getting a photo update. So I'll let you know how it goes. First time making grapefruit meringue pie, and I'm really excited about it. It smelled wonderful right before it went into the oven. And if you do have any questions, always let me know. You can DM me or email, and this will go up tomorrow onto the site with a full recipe and video markers inside the recipe, so you can like see what the meringue looks like and what the curd looks like. And I think that's it. I can't even believe I have a pie in the oven right now. I'm going to enjoy it tonight. I'm really excited about it, actually. So let me know how yours go. Shoot me a message or an email or whatever on either platform. Again, I'll be back on Facebook next week, and I have a fun plan for next week's bake-along, number 18. 8 is my favorite number, so I think this one's going to be great. Stay tuned for an update on my pie, and I will catch you guys next week. Thank you for joining. Bye.